For the month of March, we've been looking at that space in between where we are and our unrealized dreams. I've called it a couple of things. One of the things I've called it is that realm of the not yet. Another thing I've called it is the gap, that grand adventure in purpose where we know that we're in some kind of flow and that we're fluid between where we are, between the here and the there. At the beginning of March, we all took each other's hands and we said, let's leap together. Let's leap together. And we were leaping in faith. Our definition of faith was this. Faith is knowing that as you step off the cliff, one of two things will happen. Either the ground will rise to meet you, or you will spread your wings and fly. And then last week we took a look at the master teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Do you remember what our invitation was? Read a little, meditate more, and think about God all the time. We saw this invitation was as a navigation aid as we moved through the not yet, as we moved through whatever we're moving through to get wherever we're going. Do you know universally what the number one thing is that people want more than anything?
Harmony.
Harmony is a version of it.
Connection
is a version of it. Here are some hints from the ancients, from Epicurus. When we have found it, we have found everything. But when we have not, we will do anything and everything to find it. What? Love is close. Joy is close. I just haven't heard that one word. So Aristotle says, we will choose it for its own sake, never as a means to something else. It's close to peace. St. Augustine says, the most reliable constant in the world, that we not only want this, that we want only this. Happiness. Who said happiness? A cheater who came to them. Yay! But she's right. It's happiness. It's happiness. And this gentleman, Matthew Ricard, defines happiness as a deep sense of flourishing, an optimal state of being. Imagine that 24/7. Imagine happiness as your way of being all the time. So if we have demonstrated a willingness to leap in faith, if we know that our navigational aids are reading a little, meditating more, and thinking about God all the time so that we can be in happiness, oh my gosh, I wonder what that would look like. I wonder how that would feel. It would feel fabulous. It would feel absolutely fabulous. So, what is it about that space of the unknown? What is it about that realm of the not yet that we're so worried about? Because we've got this. So what are we so worried about? And here's my wisdom for why not. It's like, I don't know. It's I don't know. It's because it is the unknown, so I don't know. And in the unknown, my monkey mind just takes off, creating stories of scenarios, of things that could happen, and things that I could worry about. And all of those I don't knows and all those crazy stories are rooted, are founded in one thing. Fear. Bingo, she got that on the first try. They're rooted in fear. Fear that I'll make a mistake. Fear that I won't live up to my potential. Fear that I will live up to my potential. Fear that I won't fulfill my spiritual destiny. Fear that I'll forget that God is my source. And the more time I spend in those stories and in fear, I suffer. In The Alchemist by Paul Coelho, the boy says, my heart is afraid that it will have to suffer. The alchemist replies, tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of the search is a second encounter with God and with eternity. I love this on so many levels. Beginning with the first thing. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. The fear of anything is worse than the thing. How many times have we worried and put off a difficult conversation because we're afraid of the other person's reaction? How many times have we delayed balancing our checkbook because we're afraid of the balance? How many times have we put off not creating a will because we're afraid that that will make death more concrete or bring it closer to us? And then in the actual doing of it, the conversation was not as difficult as we thought, or we actually had more money than we thought we did in our bank account, or that death didn't come any closer or move any further away because we actually finally created a will. But in the doing of it, then we only have the experience one time, instead of the stories in our mind where we have them at least a dozen, if not 20 or 100 times. With the worry, that's the suffering. This last sentence, I think, is fantastic. No heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams. Well, okay, I have a little problem with that. If I only look at those words, no heart has ever suffered. Well, let me tell you, my heart has suffered plenty. Do you remember your first big heartbreak when that love didn't work out? Do you remember that first betrayal in a friendship? Do you remember that disharmony that occurred at work that really broke your heart? I sure do. I cried buckets, deep, heart-wrenching sobs, and my heart did suffer. And I could have stayed there in those stories and kept them going, and I would still be suffering today. But then I look at the rest of the sentence. Every second of the search is a second's encounter with God and with eternity. I don't know how many of you are on Facebook, but I am. I don't go on very often, but Facebook has this thing where it pops up a memory. Here's something from 2 years ago, 4 years ago, and this week it popped up that 7 years ago, on March 19th, which is today, I got accepted into the field licensing program for ministry school. Wow, it's my 7th anniversary of having that event in my life. And what struck me was my comment about it. Because what I wrote was, in 4 years I will be a real minister. Really? Yeah, I remember that. I remember that because I had been hired as the associate at Unity Church of Hawaii several years before that. And I had been told, and I really believed, that I was already a minister, and all I needed was the piece of paper, the credential, to prove that I was a real minister. So here I was going into a program, and I was going to get that credential, and then the whole world would know that I was a real minister. And the admissions committee on that day, March 19th, said to me, "Trust the process." And I just groaned. But do you know that every day of my program, every day of that program, as I worked with people, as I studied, as I took another class, as I had another requirement to fulfill, as I worked through hospice with people who were actively dying, when I got ordained 3 years later, when I got ordained, I recognized the real minister inside of me, not because a piece of paper, but because of my encounters with God. Every moment, every second, every minute, every hour, bringing me a gift that I didn't have before. Bringing me an experience that would lead me to a greater experience of my capacity for goodness. Every person that I got to see as an ally on my spiritual journey. So when I stood there and actually received the credential, it was like, yeah, the achievement was great. The achievement was fun, and that was wonderful. but it was the recognition of my own divinity that was the true prize. All those moments in the unknown. The unknown doesn't always look like that. Sometimes we don't recognize our encounters with God as encounters with God. The Beatles, I wasn't supposed to start with that. 4 young men in Liverpool, but now you know that they're the Beatles. They went to a record producer and they played some music for him and they said, boy bands are out, number one. The guitar sound is no longer popular. You might as well just go home. But what an invitation to say what we really want is to play music, and what we really want is to share our gift with the world. Okay, so I won't jump the gun on this one. A young woman who was a redhead went to acting school. She wanted to be a comedian. She felt her holy purpose in life was to make people laugh. And the director of the school told her, try another profession, dear. Any other profession. She had curly hair. Lucille Ball. Okay. Sometimes that divine nudge just doesn't look like it. We think it ought to look like, but the encounter is divine. The encounter has a gift. The encounter is a bridge between where we are and that happiness that we want to live in. I want to tell you a story about a farmer and a mule. And I don't know if it's true, but I don't know that it's not true. This farmer had a beloved mule, and the mule was old and sometimes had trouble seeing. And there the mule was walking across the farmer's property one day, and he fell into the well. And he was deep in the well, he was braying, he was crying, he was making all kinds of pitiful noises. And the farmer's like, this is my beloved mule, and I don't know what to do. And he looked down, and the well was so deep. And that mule, he knew, was so stubborn and so heavy that there was no way he could get the mule out of the well. So he went to his neighbors and he said, would you please help me take care of my beloved old mule? I need to bury him. I'm going to leave him in the well and I'm going to bury him. So I need your help in bringing dirt so we can, shovel the dirt in on top of that mule. And at first, as the neighbors started to do this, the mule was hysterical. Hysterical with panic, fear. It was screaming. It was doing all kinds of mule things down there in that well. And as it was doing those mule things, it noticed that every time it shook a little, the dirt would fall off and get under his feet. And so the mule develops this mantra, shake it off and step up. Shake it off and step up. You can say it. Shake it off and step up. And you know it wasn't very long before that mule just walked right over the wall of that well. And there he was, reunited with his beloved farmer. The farmer put the dirt in the well out of love for his mule. The mule received the dirt and used it as a bridge to his freedom. We don't always have dirt in our lives, but we do have love. And what do we know? Love can build a bridge. Love can build a bridge from where we are to living in our vision, from where we are to that optimal state of being, from where we are to that deep flourishing that reminds us that we're alive every minute of the day. So as we go into meditation, let's sing a reprise of Love Can Build a Bridge. You can sing, you can listen, you can sit, you can enjoy, you can do it your way. You can do it your way.
Between your heart and mine.
to recognize that we are surrounded and supported by the Spirit of love, lifting our hearts, lifting our minds, opening our breath to possibility. So I invite you to bring your vision, that which you say you want, whether it be a strength or a skill or a connection with yourself, with another person in your life, with a way of being in our community, a way of speaking truth in our nation. And breathe a little bit softer and a little bit deeper. In this sacred space, the love is real. The support is real. Our hearts are real. And it is love that can build a bridge between our deepest desires and a new reality. As we get ready to go into the holy and sacred silence, let's sing one more time. Love can build a bridge.